There are whispers woven into the fabric of history, truths so potent, they were never meant for the unprepared. Certain individuals, scattered across centuries, have held sacred knowledge that could shift the course of human understanding. But instead of proclaiming it from the mountaintops, they carried it like a hidden fire, shielding it from those who might misuse or misunderstand. Consider the mystics and prophets who walked this earth before us. They spoke in riddles, wrote in symbols, and passed their wisdom to only a few. Why? Because divine knowledge isn't just information, it's a responsibility. A truth too heavy for the unready can become a curse rather than a blessing. Throughout history, those closest to higher truths often chose silence over speech. The ancient Essenes, a mystical sect shrouded in secrecy, preserved hidden teachings that never reached the masses. The Sufi poets, like Rumi, wrapped profound revelations in metaphor, ensuring only the sincere could unravel their meanings. Even Jesus, when asked why he spoke in parables, responded that sacred wisdom was not for all but for those with ears to hear. These figures understood something crucial. Truth can illuminate, but it can also blind. Mystics and sages across traditions knew that releasing divine knowledge without preparation was like casting pearls before swine. It would either be trampled or twisted into something it was never meant to be. There's a reason the deepest spiritual insights are often kept in silence. When a truth is spoken to those unready to receive it, it either fades into irrelevance or sparks resistance. Look at Socrates. His relentless questioning of reality led to his execution. Giordano Bruno, a man who spoke too soon about cosmic truths, was burned at the stake. Even in Eastern traditions, the concept of upaya, or skillful means, teaches that wisdom must be given according to the capacity of the listener. A truth revealed too soon is not a gift, it's a burden. This is why spiritual leaders have always sought those with the patience and humility to understand before they speak. Across cultures, the idea of protecting divine wisdom is deeply ingrained. The Egyptian priests guarded their mysteries behind temple walls, only allowing initiates to learn after years of purification. In Kabbalah, it was believed that sacred knowledge should not be studied until one reached 40, ensuring emotional and intellectual maturity. The Zen masters of Japan would often answer questions with silence, teaching their students that some truths can only be realized, not explained. This tradition of sacred silence is not about exclusion, it's about protection. The mind must be prepared before it can hold the weight of higher knowledge. Those who understand this become not just seekers, but guardians of the divine. The path of the truth keeper is not for everyone, but for those who feel the weight of knowledge and the wisdom to protect it. If you're ready to walk this path, join our channel's membership for exclusive content designed for those seeking deeper spiritual understanding. Some truths can't be shared with everyone, only with those who are ready. There are secrets so powerful they were never meant to be shouted, only whispered. Throughout history, certain individuals have carried knowledge so sacred, so transformative, that revealing it to the unprepared could shatter their understanding of reality itself. What if the greatest truths weren't the ones written in books or preached to crowds, but the ones passed in silence, guarded by those chosen to bear their weight? These are the mysteries that shaped faiths, moved mountains, and changed lives. Yet not everyone was meant to hear them. Today, we uncover the hidden burden of divine knowledge, why some truths are meant for the few, not the many, and why the greatest spiritual masters chose silence over revelation. There are whispers woven into the fabric of history, truths so potent, they were never meant for the unprepared. Certain individuals, scattered across centuries, have held sacred knowledge that could shift the course of human understanding. But instead of proclaiming it from the mountaintops, they carried it like a hidden fire, shielding it from those who might misuse or misunderstand. Consider the mystics and prophets who walked this earth before us. They spoke in riddles, wrote in symbols, and passed their wisdom to only a few. Why? Because divine knowledge isn't just information, it's a responsibility. A truth too heavy for the unready can become a curse rather than a blessing. Throughout history, those closest to higher truths often chose silence over speech. The ancient Essenes, a mystical sect shrouded in secrecy, preserved hidden teachings that never reached the masses. The Sufi poets, like Rumi, wrapped profound revelations in metaphor, ensuring only the sincere could unravel their meanings. Even Jesus, when asked why he spoke in parables, responded that sacred wisdom was not for all but for those with ears to hear. These figures understood something crucial. Truth can illuminate, but it can also blind. Mystics and sages across traditions knew that releasing divine knowledge without preparation was like casting pearls before swine. It would either be trampled or twisted into something it was never meant to be. There's a reason the deepest spiritual insights are often kept in silence. When a truth is spoken to those unready to receive it, it either fades into irrelevance or sparks resistance. Look at Socrates. His relentless questioning of reality led to his execution. Giordano Bruno, a man who spoke too soon about cosmic truths, was burned at the stake. Even in Eastern traditions, the concept of upaya, or skillful means, teaches that wisdom must be given according to the capacity of the listener. A truth revealed too soon is not a gift, it's a burden. This is why spiritual leaders have always sought those with the patience and humility to understand before they speak. Across cultures, the idea of protecting divine wisdom is deeply ingrained. The Egyptian priests guarded their mysteries behind temple walls, only allowing initiates to learn after years of purification. In Kabbalah, it was believed that sacred knowledge should not be studied until one reached 40, ensuring emotional and intellectual maturity. The Zen masters of Japan would often answer questions with silence, teaching their students that some truths can only be realized, not explained. This tradition of sacred silence is not about exclusion, it's about protection. The mind must be prepared before it can hold the weight of higher knowledge. Those who understand this become not just seekers, but guardians of the divine. The path of the truth-keeper is not for everyone, but for those who feel the weight of knowledge and the wisdom to protect it. If you're ready to walk this path, join our channel's membership for exclusive content designed for those seeking deeper spiritual understanding. Some truths can't be shared with everyone, only with those who are ready. There's a hidden thread running through history, an unspoken agreement among those entrusted with sacred knowledge. It isn't written in any book, nor is it spoken openly. It's a code, understood only by those who have proven themselves worthy. From ancient mystery schools to modern spiritual circles, those who seek the deepest truths are tested, not with words, but with silence, patience, and unwavering commitment. The greatest spiritual leaders have always known that divine wisdom isn't for the curious. It's for the chosen. And being chosen isn't about status, birthright, or intelligence. It's about something much deeper. How do the keepers of sacred knowledge recognize those who are truly ready? And why do some truths lose their power when spoken too freely? Throughout history, those entrusted with sacred knowledge never handed it out to just anyone. They watched, they tested, they waited. In the ancient world, mystery schools required years of preparation before a student could even approach the deeper teachings. The Pythagoreans, a secretive brotherhood of philosophers, imposed a strict vow of silence on new initiates for 5 years before they were allowed to hear the inner teachings. This wasn't just discipline, it was proof of worthiness. In the East, Zen masters would deliberately ignore students who asked too many questions, forcing them to demonstrate patience and perseverance before receiving even a single teaching. In Sufi traditions, the master would often mislead or test a disciple, seeing whether they sought knowledge out of ego or true longing. These methods weren't meant to exclude, they were meant to refine. The true seeker had to show humility, devotion, and a willingness to learn in silence. Only then could they be entrusted with wisdom too powerful for the unready. Receiving divine wisdom isn't an achievement, it's a duty. Those who carry it don't do so for personal gain. In fact, it often comes with a heavy cost. Moses climbed Mount Sinai alone, returning with knowledge that changed the fate of an entire people. The Prophet Muhammad received revelations in solitude, carrying a truth that would reshape the world. The Buddha, after his enlightenment, remained silent for days, knowing that few would understand what he had seen. Each of them bore a responsibility not just to receive knowledge, but to protect it. They understood that wisdom, once spoken, could be twisted, misunderstood, or even used for harm. That's why the greatest truths were rarely shared openly. They were entrusted to those strong enough to carry them without corruption. Even today, those who seek higher understanding must be prepared for this burden. Knowledge that can transform can also destroy, and that's why not everything is meant to be spoken. There's a paradox to divine wisdom. The moment it is revealed to the unprepared, it begins to lose its power. This isn't superstition. It's a reality that has played out across time. Sacred words, when repeated too often without understanding, become hollow. Spiritual insights, when turned into slogans, lose their depth. A truth that could have changed a life, if spoken too soon, might be ignored, mocked, or worse, misused. This is why the most powerful teachings were always veiled in symbols, metaphors, and parables. The deeper meaning was reserved for those willing to seek it. Jesus taught in stories. The Bhagavad Gita speaks in poetic riddles. Even the Tao Te Ching, one of the most profound spiritual texts, begins by warning that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Some truths are not meant to be declared. They are meant to be lived, to be carried in silence, and to reveal themselves only to those who are truly ready. Not everyone is meant to walk the path of a truth keeper, but if you feel drawn to these teachings, you are not alone. Our community is dedicated to seekers who understand the power of wisdom and the responsibility that comes with it. Join our channel's membership for exclusive insights that go beyond the surface, reserved only for those who are ready to receive them. Not all wisdom is spoken. Not all knowledge is written. The most profound truths are not delivered through words at all. They are felt, experienced, and understood in the stillness between thoughts. Across centuries, those who have sought divine connection have found themselves drawn not toward noise, but toward silence. The great spiritual masters, the mystics, the chosen ones, they all understood that there is a language beyond speech, and only those who embrace silence can truly hear it. Why is silence so powerful? How does it become a bridge between the seeker and the divine? And why have the greatest revelations in history often arrived in moments of stillness? In a world that glorifies noise, silence is a radical act. It is not emptiness, it is presence. It is not weakness, it is power. Throughout history, silence has been used as a sacred practice, a way to attune the mind and soul to higher wisdom. The Desert Fathers of early Christianity withdrew into the wilderness, believing that the absence of speech allowed them to hear God more clearly. Buddhist monks take vows of silence to deepen their understanding of the self and the universe. In Hindu traditions, the practice of mauna, intentional silence, is believed to quiet the mind so that the voice of the divine can be heard. True seekers do not chase answers in noise. They create space for revelation by embracing silence. And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. Have you ever experienced a moment where words were unnecessary? A moment where truth was simply known, without explanation? This is the silent language of the divine. It is the way a master can pass wisdom to a student with a single glance. The way a moment of stillness can reveal more than hours of conversation. It is why the greatest teachings are often wordless, because some truths can only be understood in the depths of silence. Rumi, the great Sufi poet, said it best. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other do not make any sense. This is why the most enlightened beings often say the least. Not because they do not know, but because they understand that some truths cannot be reduced to mere words. They must be felt. The most powerful spiritual experiences often come in the absence of words. Think of the stillness of meditation. the overwhelming peace that washes over you in a moment of prayer, the sudden realization that changes your entire perspective, not because someone told you, but because you simply knew. This is why those who have walked the path before us often withdrew into solitude. The Buddha sat in silence beneath the Bodhi tree until enlightenment arrived. Moses ascended the mountain alone. The Prophet Muhammad received revelation in the stillness of a cave. None of them were surrounded by crowds when they touched the divine. They were alone, silent, open, because when the noise of the world fades, truth emerges. And in that moment, it is no longer something you hear, it is something you become. The path of silence is not an escape, it is an awakening. If you feel drawn to these truths, you are not alone. Join our channel's membership for exclusive content reserved for those who seek deeper wisdom beyond words. Some knowledge is meant to be heard, but the most powerful knowledge is meant to be experienced. Truth is powerful, but power always comes with a cost. Throughout history, those who have carried divine wisdom have faced immense trials. Some were persecuted, others were silenced. Many paid with their lives. The weight of sacred knowledge is not just in understanding it. It is in carrying it, protecting it, and knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Revealing truth at the wrong time has changed the course of history. Those who have tried to illuminate the unready have often met resistance, exile, or worse. And yet, the burden of wisdom remains for those chosen to bear it. Why does sacred knowledge come with a price? What happens when truth is revealed too soon? And how does one carry this weight without being crushed by it? History is filled with individuals who spoke truths the world wasn't ready to hear, and suffered for it. Socrates questioned the nature of reality, morality, and human ignorance, only to be sentenced to death for corrupting the youth of Athens. Jesus challenged religious authorities and revealed deeper spiritual truths, truths that led to his crucifixion. The Sufi mystic Mansur al-Hallaj openly declared his unity with the divine and was executed for heresy. These were not mere philosophers or rebels. They were individuals who touched something beyond human understanding. But their mistake, if it can even be called that, was believing that the world was ready for what they had seen. Even outside the spiritual realm, truth-tellers have faced consequences. Galileo was forced to recant his discoveries about the universe. Giordano Bruno, who spoke of infinite worlds and a cosmic order beyond human perception, was burned at the stake. This is the danger of revealing truth too soon. The unready do not listen. They resist. They fight. They destroy. A truth given at the wrong time is like a seed thrown on barren ground. Cannot take root. Cannot grow. It either withers away or is trampled underfoot. This is why the greatest spiritual teachers understood the importance of timing. The Buddha remained silent after his enlightenment, unsure if anyone could understand what he had realized. Jesus often told his followers not to reveal his miracles, knowing that knowledge given prematurely could lead to chaos. The esoteric traditions of many ancient cultures required initiates to undergo years of training before being entrusted with deeper wisdom. Truth is like fire. In the right hands, it gives warmth and light. In the wrong hands, it destroys everything it touches. That is why timing is everything. Some knowledge is meant to be shared, but only with those who are ready to receive it. To carry sacred knowledge is to walk a lonely road. Those who have glimpsed higher truths often find themselves isolated. They see the world differently. They understand things others do not. And this can be both a gift and a burden. Many spiritual seekers struggle with this. They want to share what they have discovered. They want others to see what they see. But they quickly realize that not everyone is ready. Some reject them. Others mock them, and some, perhaps the worst of all, pretend to listen but distort the truth into something unrecognizable. This is why silence is sometimes the only option. Not because the truth should never be spoken, but because it must be protected from those who would twist it. To be a keeper of sacred knowledge is to understand when to speak and when to remain silent. It is to recognize that not everyone will understand, and that's okay. because those who are meant to know will find their way just as you did. The path of wisdom is not easy, but you don't have to walk it alone. If you feel the weight of knowledge and the responsibility that comes with it, join our channel's membership for exclusive content designed for those ready to go beyond surface-level understanding. Some truths are meant to be whispered, not shouted, and those who carry them must learn to do so wisely. The ancient mystics, the prophets, the wise ones of old, they lived in times where sacred knowledge was guarded within temples, passed through secret teachings, or hidden in parables. But today, we live in an era where information is everywhere, yet true wisdom is rarer than ever. So, how does one walk the path of a modern truth keeper? How do you preserve what is sacred in a world that demands everything be exposed, explained, and simplified for mass consumption? The role of the chosen ones has not disappeared, it has evolved. The responsibility remains, but the challenge is greater than ever. How do you find the balance between sharing and protecting? And what are the signs that you, too, have been called to guard these deeper truths? In the past, wisdom was hidden because society was not ready for it. Today, wisdom is lost because it is drowned in an ocean of distractions. Social media, endless opinions, and the constant noise of the modern world make it difficult for real truth to survive. The ancient sages had to guard knowledge from those who would misuse it. Now, the challenge is different, keeping knowledge from being diluted, misinterpreted, or stripped of its power. So, how does a modern truth keeper navigate this? They understand that not every truth must be shared. Just because you know something does not mean it should be spoken. Wisdom is not meant to be thrown into the wind, but placed carefully into the hands of those ready for it. They choose depth over exposure. Instead of arguing with the masses, they seek out those who are truly willing to learn. A single deep conversation is worth more than 1,000 shallow debates. They master the art of silence. Not all battles need to be fought with words. Some are won simply by being an example, by living the truth rather than trying to convince others of it. In a world that demands instant answers, the modern truth keeper understands that real knowledge requires patience, discipline, and the wisdom to know when to remain silent. There will always be a tension between revealing and protecting. Too much secrecy, and wisdom is lost. Too much exposure, and it loses its meaning. Many spiritual traditions have struggled with this. Some chose to keep everything hidden, allowing only a few initiates access to the deepest truths. Others shared too openly, only to watch their teachings distorted beyond recognition. The key is balance. True wisdom is not about hoarding knowledge, nor is it about carelessly giving it away. It's about discerning who is ready. It's about knowing when a truth is needed and when silence is the better path. The greatest teachers in history did not force their wisdom upon others. They waited for the right moment, the right question, the right student. And in doing so, they ensured that their knowledge was not just heard, but understood. This is the way of the modern truth keeper. Not hiding, not shouting, but guiding only when the time is right. Not everyone is meant to walk this path. But if you feel drawn to these ideas, if you sense a responsibility to guard wisdom rather than just consume it, you may already be walking it. Here are the signs. You feel the weight of knowledge. Certain truths feel heavier to you than they do to others. You sense their importance, and you instinctively know they must be handled with care. You struggle with what to share and what to keep. You often find yourself wondering if the world is ready for what you've learned. You have an inner knowing that cannot be explained. It's not just about learning, it's about remembering. Some truths feel familiar, as if you've always known them. You are drawn to silence and contemplation. Noise exhausts you. Shallow conversations feel empty. You seek depth not just in knowledge, but in experience. You recognize that not everyone will understand. And you're okay with that. You know that true seekers will always find their way. If these signs resonate with you, then perhaps you, too, are being called to carry something greater than yourself. To be a guardian of wisdom, a protector of truth, and a seeker who understands that some things are meant to be whispered, not shouted. Remember, these truths aren't meant to be hidden forever. They are waiting for the right moment, the right person, and the right understanding. The question is, are you ready to become a keeper of sacred knowledge? The path of the modern truth keeper is not an easy one, but you don't have to walk it alone. Join our channel's membership for exclusive teachings reserved for those who seek deeper wisdom. Some truths are not meant for the masses. They are meant for those who understand their power. If that resonates with you, then welcome. The journey begins now.